So namaskar everyone. Welcome to this 13 sessions of this divine journey, NAHA Srimad Bhagavad Gita with Sundarajanji. So from all of us, I will welcome Sundarajanji to take over and please begin this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ji, and Pranam, everybody. So while I share my screen, I just want to say thanks to all of you and welcome back. And this time we'll continue on the journey where we left off last time, which is Deva Asurat Sampat Vibhaga Yoga. Before we go into that, we will have a short invocation from the Veda Shanti Mantra, and then we'll begin. Please join me. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vedvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So welcome back to our conversation on the Deva Asura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga, which is chapter 16. And today we'll look at the last four. We finished till about Shloka 19, and today we'll do from Shloka 20 to 24 or 21 to 24, and then conclude with that. So with that, the topic of Deva Asura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga comes to a conclusion, right? So we'll start with the Shloka, and then we'll see or I'll give you a recap once we see the shloka, and then we'll go from there. So shloka 21. Trividham narakasyedham dvaram nashanam kamah krodhastadha lobah tasmat etatrayam tyajet. In the text, it's kama krodhastadha lobas tasmat etatrayam tyajet with the sandhi, and I do the sandhi vicheda because of the syllable count. Okay, but either way, it is the same. Here, I want to just recap before going into this shloka. Is Bhagavan has led us on a very beautiful journey from the beginning of chapter 16. So the first three shlokas of chapter 16 covered the Deva Gunas, the Gunas that we need to cultivate to become eligible to even read the Bhagavad Gita, right? So as human beings, we are born with prarabdhas. And this prarabdha has given us a chance to redeem ourselves and to make us as capable as possible to become free from the bondage of samsara or the samsara bandha. And for that, there are the qualities that assist us to even get to bhakti yoga or jnana or vairagya. There are 26 qualities or 26 steps that we have to climb and enable ourselves. So that was the first three shlokas. And then Bhagavan went on to talk about some gunas. Gunas are basically some traits of the asuras and attitudes of the asuras, basically traits that leads you towards failure. That is kamaha, krodaha, and paurusham, and all those things, right? So we saw that, and Bhagavan has now come to almost a conclusion. But before concluding the topic, Bhagavan gives us a warning as to, or a tip as to the three main things. If you cannot eradicate all your asura gunas or all your impurities, there are three things you can give up, which will definitely stop you from going into dissension or decline, right? So what does Bhagavan say here? He says, Trividam narakasya idam dwaram. So we'll see the meaning word by word, because one of the feedback that we also got from the audience a couple of weeks ago was to learn Sanskritam as we go with the Gita. So narakasya idam, as in narak ke dwar, ye dwar, or narakasya dwaram. Trividam, three types of dwar, right? Three types of gateways to naraka. Remember, I'm not using the word hell here, and I'll tell you why in a bit. Naraka has no English equivalent or equivalent in any other language. So never commit the mistake of using hell in equivalent to Naraka. Okay. Dwaram, Nashanam Atmanaha. Here, Atmanasha is not the destruction of the soul, but it's destroying the progress of spiritual upliftment of the Jivatma, right? Because Atma cannot be destroyed. Atma is imperishable and avyaya. So here, Atma Nasha is basically the destruction of the progress. What are the three types of gateway to Narakam? They're Kama, Krodha, Tata, Lobha. Kama is Veda Nishiddha Kama. That is Kama that goes against the injunctions of the Vedas. Any Kama that is done in accordance to Vedas is a good thing. Where Bhagavan himself says, dharmo aviruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharata rishabha. So any kama or any desire that is in accordance to dharma, like I want to have a son, or putra kameshti, putri kameshti. So those kind of things are good things. But any desire that strays you away from your path towards freedom is bad. So kama. Krodha. Krodha is an offshoot of kama. When you have a desire and that desire is not fulfilled, there is an inborn frustration that happens. And because of that frustration, a man or like a person goes towards destruction or gets angry. So that is the kind of anger discussed here. Kama janita krodha. Okay. And third is lobha. Lobha is greed. Again, in all these cases, you'll have to add Veda Nishiddha Kamaha, Veda Nishiddha Krodha, Veda Nishiddha Lobha. Meaning any greed that is not in accordance with dharma is bad for you. Okay. Tasmat, therefore, tyajet etatrayam. Etatrayam tyajet means give up all these three. Okay. Now, I'll just take a moment to talk about, why I classified Naraka as Naraka and not as hell. Okay. Now, Naraka literally means of human or of man, right? And in Dharma, there's no concept of Naraka where there is lots of punishment or eternal punishment. Naraka is a place where it's the jiva gets a chance to get purified and come back, right? And if you look at the Puranas, mainly the Garuda Purana and all, you will see a medieval torture chamber kind of description given to Naraka. There's a whole bunch of description that goes on to how the jiva is tortured. But if you look at the Upanishads and if you look at the Vedas, there is hardly any description of a torturous Naraka, right? Whenever there is a mention of Naraka, including the Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned as darkness or a place without light and Ajnana. So this is called Naraka. Furthermore, Ajnana and Avidya is called Naraka, Gorantakareshu, right? And all the Hindus would know, or all the dharmic people. When I say dharmic, I mean Sanatana Dharma, Jaina Dharma, and Bauddha Dharma. Anything that was from the Bharatiya Sanskriti, right? So the dharmic viewpoint of Papa and Punya. Most of us have a conceived notion or a Western notion of what is sin and virtue, Papa and Punya. But in an Indian context or in a dharmic context, you are on a path towards freedom. The whole game is to free yourself from imposed bondages of avidya. Anything that prevents you from reaching your goal is called papa. Anything that distracts you away. Why is drinking sin? Why is committing crime sin? Why is bribing a sin? Because these all add up to your karmic debt and they drag you away from your path towards freedom. So that's why it's called a papa. For a student, what is papa? Pap for a student is not doing your homework, being lazy, or playing excessive video games. Those are pap because they are stopping you from reaching your goal. For a person who is recuperating, for example, let's say a person's suffering from diabetes, eating sweets is sin because it takes you away from your original path. What is punya then? Punya is the opposite. Punya are enablers. Anything that progresses or accelerates you towards your goal is called a punya. That is why dhana, dharma, and all those things, because it eradicates your ego. That is why it is considered to be a punya. Just giving money away in itself doesn't constitute punya if you have selfishness built into you. Like there are people who commit a lot of crime and then for the sake of redemption, they just write a check. So that comes in chapter 17 of Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga under Yajna Dana Tapakriya. Those are adhama or tamasi types of dana and dharma. So whenever you think of papa and punya or activity that you do, simple. Whenever you're trying to do something, you have to think and analyze every single time. Is this helping me towards my progress? Or is this helping me or drawing me back and setting me paths behind? I remember that during our childhood, we used to play a game. Now it's called Snakes and Ladders. Paramapada Sopana. I think it was attributed to Sant Jnaneshwarji, where you have a game or a 10 by 10, 100 checks, and then you have some ladders leading to towards up, and there are snakes that drag you down. And those were very beautiful education models for kids to understand what kind of activities will drag you down and set you back on your path to spiritual progress, and which are the activities you can do to elevate yourself in the path and become a good person or become a spiritually stable person, right? And these kind of activities or games have suddenly vanished and become very commercial as to just snakes and ladders, where the game has become the prominence. The lessons have been forgotten. Probably it will be nice for some of us to actually take that up as a task and play that as a game with kids, because that will be a very nice model of education when we are talking about educating our kids in school. Have fun but learn at the same time. So back to the shloka. Papa and punya, now you understand the context of enablers and impediments. Okay. And desire, here's the trick. Bhagavan had mentioned three things that will stop you or that will push you into ignorance: kama, krodha, and lobha. Now I'll reduce the three into just one, only kama. If you give up kama, the other two will automatically go away, guaranteed. Without desire, there is no anger. Without desire, there is no greed. So if you have to focus on one thing, just focus on the desire aspect of it, bring it towards controlling it, and then sublimating it. If you can do that, then you become qualified for even learning the Bhagavad Gita. So we'll see as we go how we have gotten into a rut of doing whatever we want, manmani, right? Doing leading a life of poor choices, and then still thinking that reading the Bhagavad Gita is something you can do in your spare time. That's not how we should treat it, right? Having said that, I hope you understand this point. We'll move on to the next shloka. Shloka number 22. एतैर्विमुक्तः कौन्तेय तमोद्वारैस्त्रिभिर्नरै नरः आचर आचरत्यात्मनः श्रेयस्तथो याति परां गतिम्. एतैर्विमुक्तः कौन्तेय. Etaihi means from these, right? Hey Kaunteya, hey son of Kunti. Nara. Nara here means sadhaka. Now that we are in a gender new, basically gender agnostic society, you could say Nara is Nara and Nari, but Nara is a human being, right? Vimuktaha, being free from tribihi tamodvaraihi. These three qualities that push you into tama or ignorance. Okay, what you have to do, you observe acharati atmana shreyaha, what is beneficial to the atma, the jivatma. Practice these three things. What are the things that you can practice to get away? Now we were talking about karma. To reduce karma, first thing you have to do is get away from the company that compels you to go into some habits. So satsanga is one of the main thing that a person has to do. A person is known by the company they keep, right? If you're hanging with a bunch of movie addicts, naturally what will your conversation be? About movies. Or stock market, it will be about stock market. If you're hanging out with Bhagavad Gita lovers, then what will it be? About Bhagavad Gita, hopefully, right? So the company has to change for you to internally change. It has to be a very supportive group where everybody communicates about the same thing and exchanges opinion rather than argue with each other. Normally, what happens is a company is formed. Let's say we start a group with great intentions. Then it devolves because other attributes come into it. So company itself will not, make a difference. The company has to have certain experienced people like the Mahatmas. So when you say satsanga, you have to have a strong personality who is a Mahatma who has gone through this journey. Then it will be even more beneficial. That's why you have the Swamijis when they come, you have a satsang and all those things, right? And that takes you towards, even in your spare time, you'll be thinking about it. There's something called after effect. You have great satsang, you go home, but your mind is still thinking about some aspect of it. I want to change myself. Oh, it was so nice. That so nice aspect is your string or your thread to hang by, and then take the next step. And then you take one more step, you take one more step. So you actually get into a comfort zone where you're doing satsanga on your own, right? Till you get to that point, have a satsanga, then do your sankirtana or your bhajan, your kirtan, Vishnu Sahasranam, small things, or shloka chanting. How long will it take for you to do a shloka chanting in the morning and the evening? Two shlokas, right? Make it 5 minutes a day. Do your pranayam or do your Surya Namaskar. If you cannot do any of that, just put a YouTube video and listen to it. That we can do, right? Like while drinking your coffee, you just listen to some Rudram Chamaka, whatever it is. That itself, when you seep in, the environment is created. So those are the things you can start with, and then slowly you can progress into actual sadhanas, right? So currently, wherever you are, you have to assess yourself for your assessment to say, I am at this stage where I can do certain things. There are great, Maharathis here who are good at Surya Namaskara. So you can start a Surya Namaskara satsang, or anything that you can do to influence the society. And we are all here as human being to human being, and we exchange great ideas and elevate ourselves to become greater. Okay. Taken the other way, the Asura Gunas, people try to bring, okay, here is one thing that I've always found very strange. In a society, equality is a great thing, right? Everybody on equal footing. Now, great people like the sages or the rishis of the past, they elevate themselves and pull everybody up and make the society equal. And there is another set of people who drag everybody down and say, now we are equal, right? So we have to be of the first kind where we elevate everybody up and elevate together. And then that's where we are getting at with the Bhagavad Gita studies. So, acharati shreya tato yati param gatim. Now, it says, tato yati param gatim. Param gatim is the highest goal. What is the highest goal? There can be nothing higher than freedom. We call it mukti, or we call it kaivalya, or we call it moksha. But literally, when you actually think about it, it is simply freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from your own thoughts of inadequacies, your own thought of limitations. You are the Akhanda Brahma Swarupa who thinks that you are in a human form, limited by this world and limited by time and space. Once the mind is clear, all these false shackles are broken, and it will happen. It takes patience, and it takes what is called kripa. Once that is come, then everything else is easy. So far so good, I hope. Then we'll move on to the next. And at the end of it, please feel free to discuss this, because like last time, we'll have a short time for discussion also. Okay, moving on, shloka 23, and we are getting towards the conclusion of the chapter. Yashastra var sorry Yashastra vartate kamakarataha nasa siddhimavapnoti na sukham na param gatim. Okay. Now, here Bhagavan gives a thunderbolt. Now, this is something that may or may not be acceptable to, the, what do you call it? The colonial mindsets. People who have been brainwashed by, the education system, where we think, like Charvakas, we think that there is only material and all. So here Bhagavan says, yeah, one who utsrujya, discards or given up or throws away Shastra Vidim, the commandments of the Shastra. Now, that's a double repetition. Now, when I say Shastra, now you have to listen very carefully. The word Shastra comes from the word Shas Dhatu, right? It does not mean Vedas are saying or they are suggesting, they're commanding. There is no escape from it. Shastra is a commandment. How you have Rajashasanam, Shilasasanam. They're commandments. I mean, it's not, it's a law. You have to do it. There is no or else. So that's what's called a commandment. Shastras. If you discard the Shastra, it is against your own thing. So you can say, oh, Shastras are guidelines. They're not guidelines. They are laws. Okay. Sorry, LAWS, not LOSS. Law. Okay. Shastra Vidim Utsrujya Vartate Kamakaratah. They go about doing whatever they want to do based on the, I'm waking up this morning, I'm doing my accountancy or I'm doing my 9 to 5 job, and I'm throwing a couple of flowers on Sunday evenings, I'm happy. So that is not how Shastra is done. There is something called a Sandhya Vandana. And there is something called, your daily prayers or your pranayama, your japas, kirtana. So those are the things that you have to follow. There is Nitya Karma and there is Niyata Karma. Based on your age, from a brahmachari, there are certain shastras. For a grahastha, there are certain shastras, right? So for each stage in life, you have a certain shastra. So when I say shastra, they're commandments. So one who discards this and moves about as if they have no rules, ignorance doesn't play a role. If you feel like you have no rules, then you'll be getting the karmic debt that those things apply for. So if you want to do spiritual progress, then we are talking about all these things. Right? For anybody who wants to do spiritual progress, start learning the Shastras. Okay. Kama Karataha na siddhim avapnoti. Siddhi literally means accomplishment. Siddhyate, right? To accomplish something. So na siddhim avapnoti. The person cannot accomplish something, the purusharthas in this lifetime or this world. Na sukham. They will not have happiness. Na param gatim, nor attain what they should attain hereafter, right? Which is freedom or liberation. So, what happens to these people? I mean, when I say these people, the person who discards Shastra, Kama, Krodha, Stata, Lobaha, and they go back to ignorance or the Narakas. So, Naraka doesn't mean a punishment. And I wanted to say something like again, the dharmic viewpoint of there is no sin but Papa. You're not punished for your sin, you're punished by your sin. Difference. If a person is drinking, right, there is no special punishment in Naraka for for drinking. There's no such thing. The drinking itself will punish you. Okay, you're punished by your sins or papa because it sets you back. Physically, there is injury. That's a different thing, but it sets you back in the progress towards freedom. Okay, so knowing that, then Arjuna has a tacit question. Okay, now you told me that if I throw away shastras, then this is gone. So what do I do? So there is a prescription, a prescription. So Bhagavan concludes the chapter with the idea that tasmat shastram pramanam te karya karya vyavastitau nyatva shastra vidanoktam karma kartum iharhasi. So tasmat, therefore, tasmat means wherefore. Tasman means therefore means knowing all the things I've told you in this chapter. The Narakadvaraha and Shastra Vedamutsrujya, meaning if you give up Shastra, what happens to you? Knowing the dangers of giving up Shastra and knowing the benefits of following these things. Therefore, Shastram Pramanante, the Shastras are your guidelines. The commandments are your guidelines, sorry, are your path, are the laws. Pramanam. Okay, I want to take a couple of minutes here to talk about the word pramanam. Right, in all our shastras, pramanam is a very important thing. Right, so you have the Vedas, and the Vedas have many darshanas. Darshanas are viewpoints. You have the Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Samkhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. We will not go into those, but each of these darshanas take certain things as pramana. Pramana means valid source of knowledge. Now, Charvaka, for example, which is materialism, has pramana, has one pramana, which is pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means what I can see, hear, touch, feel, anything through my sense organ is a pramana. Will the sun rise tomorrow? I don't know. I don't care. I cannot see it, so I don't know. Here and now is my pramana. So that's pramana is valid source of knowledge. Patanjali on Yoga Sutra, he says Pratyaksha Anumana Agama Pramanani. So there are three pramanas for them. Pratyaksha, meaning what you can physically see or what you can directly see, direct perception. Anumana, inferences. Inference means things have been happening in a pattern. So will the sun rise tomorrow? Yes, it will rise because it has been rising, every day at this time. So it will. Agamaha, meaning Shastras, or also Pramana, which is expert advice. Now, I don't have to solve E equals MC square. It has been done by somebody who is an expert. It's been agreed upon. Therefore, I believe it. So, Agama Pramana means any anything that I can take as a Pramana because it has been done and dealt with and it's been proven, right, by experts. Now, the reason I'm talking about Pramana here in depth is we have five sense organs that help us. Think of you as a jivatma, right? Your interface to the world of knowing is only through these five sense organs: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. That's it. Now, there is a sixth one, which is your mind, which does the inferences, like we said, the Anumana inferences. But then there's a seventh one, which is much stronger, according to the Vedas, which is the Vedas itself. Veda is a pramana. Veda is a stronger pramana that exposes you or that gives you the knowledge of something none of the six can give you. It is exposing you to Brahman or Atma, which cannot be perceived by the five sense organs or the manas. That is why it is called a pramana, right? Veda pramanani. And this is where you have to, and Nastika is not a person who does not believe in Ishvara. Nastika is a person who does not believe in the Vedas. Okay, so I was telling about the six darshanas. Of these six darshanas, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Samkhya, and Mimamsa, they don't accept Ishvara. They're still called Astika darshanas. They have no talk about Ishvara. One actually goes on to say we don't require Ishvara. That is Mimamsa. Yoga believes in Ishvara. Vedanta says Ishvara is there as a stop measure, meaning as a temporary measure. Ishvara is not final. Ishvara is a part of Brahman and it is there in this prapancha. So what I'm trying to say here is if you believe, or sorry, no, if you accept Vedas as pramana, then this shloka becomes extremely clear for you. Shastra is a way to understand something that the mind cannot see or perceive, or the sense organs cannot perceive. So if you want to understand Atma, you cannot go through the route of just dhyana. It has to be Veda Anukula Dhyana. You understand? I start meditating on a candle thinking, that will give me darshan, it won't help. So you have to go deep dive into the Shastras. Okay, that's where this shloka is coming to a very strong point. Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te. Shastras are your pramanas. They are your input to something that is deeper, that the mind cannot even see or mind cannot even understand. Mano Vacham Agocharaha. Right? The mind cannot see, the voice or the words cannot explain it. So what should you do? Karya Akarya Vyavastitau. So in all matters, that is in do's and don'ts, or prescribed and proscribed by the Vedas. So things you're supposed to do and things you're not supposed to do. We have seen through the chapter what you're supposed to do, all the Devagunas, and things you're not supposed to do. That is kama, krodha, and apaurusheya, all those things. Paurusheya, all those things you're not supposed to do. Right? Satvikas you're supposed to do. Rajasa you have to control. Tamasa you have to give up. So all these things, understanding this, you have to put it in the context of Shastras. Okay. Now this is, I'm nailing it down, and this probably would be the most important lines of the Bhagavad Gita before we even begin the Bhagavad Gita studies. Okay. Now this chapter is not the Bhagavad Gita itself. Chapter 2 is the main Bhagavad Gita, like the main teachings of Bhagavad Gita about the Atma and all. This is about us. This is about our personality, about changing our personality before we go into chapter 2. Okay. Karya akarya vyavastitau jnatva shastra vidana uktam. Uktam said, okay, jnatva, knowing this, the procedures that are mentioned in the Shastras, karma kartum iharhasi. Hey Arjuna, hey Kaunteya, you have to do all your duties based on the Shastras, or based on the guidelines or the path given by the Shastras. So start using or start thinking of Shastras as your sixth sense organ or seventh sense organ, to start seeing in the direction that gives your jiva the upliftment. Okay. That is why in the beginning I said this is going to be very hard for a colonized mind. It's going to be extremely tough for us to understand, the Shastras being a Pramana. But if you are in the Bhagavad Gita study group, then this becomes very important. Right? If we are doing like a Reader's Digest magazine group, that's a different thing. Then I won't even bring this up. In a Bhagavad Gita study group, this becomes the foundation or the bedrock upon which everything else is built. Without this foundation, everything else will crumble. Okay. Now, now I want to go on before we go to the section on question answers. I wanted to give you a story. We were talking about the three gunas, or the three things that will push you down on the path towards ignorance. Right. So I remember a story. This is about how we know what we want, but we go about in the wrong way to get what we want. Right. So one story that I heard from my father when I was a kid was about a man who wanted to become rich. I mean, of course, everybody wants to, but this person prays to Shiva, right? And he prays with the intent, and in his mind, he has only one thing, that he wants to turn iron into gold, right? So I want a month. So he does his puja and tapas and all. Then Shiva appears. And he says, "What do you want?" And he says, "Please give me a mantra by which, or give me something by which I can turn all the iron into gold." And that's not my das story. And Shiva says, "Okay, fine. So here is the mantra, a Bijakshara. You can apply it only once in your lifetime. And you say this mantra and you touch gold, sorry, touch iron, it will become gold. But once you've done that, the mantra, I mean, you cannot do it again." So this person, he spends his lifetime. So now he has got this mantra and he starts acquiring iron more and more. And he works extra overtime. And he's lost all his weight, and he's doing double shift, triple shift, and he spent his entire lifetime. So in his backyard, it's like a junkyard piled of iron, all the iron he can lay his hands on. And he's now like 70, 75 years old. And now he says, "Okay, anyway, I'm very close to my lifetime, so let me turn this." And now he goes to the backyard and he looks at all the mountain of iron, and he realizes that he's forgotten the mantra. So gone. Anyway, like he has a stroke and he passes away. He goes to Kailash. And there, Shiva asks him, then he, "Are you happy?" And then he says, "No, and this is what happened, But I gave you a mantra, Shiva says, "I gave you a mantra. What happened?" He says, "I was accumulating so much of iron that I forgot, to the mantra itself." Then Shiva asks, "So why did you want so much iron?" He said, "I could turn it into gold, so I wanted so much iron." Then Bhagavan says, "Okay, why did you want so much gold?" "Oh, that will make me rich so that, I can sell it and I can become rich, and I wanted to feed my family, and seven generations, and we would be the richest in the world. And Shiva asks, so why did you want to become so rich? He says, oh, because I wanted to be happy. And Shiva says, why didn't you ask me for happiness in the first place? Why did you have to go through this big route, right? And this is what we do. We, at the core of all our pursuits, we want happiness. We are always seeking happiness. But the way we are going forth towards happiness is a completely wrong route, in which we destroy our peace of mind here, we destroy family time, we destroy friendships, and finally we end up, we are not happy with that also, whatever we got, right? So that is why self study is very important. So what we will do is taking the cues from this chapter. Anyway, we know the bad qualities we want to give up, which is just karma. You give up, everything else is gone. Now, the 26 qualities, you cannot do it all at the same time. So, what you have to do is according to your own priorities, you have to start prioritizing. So, what are the qualities that are low hanging fruits, meaning that you can easily develop, and those are crucial for you? So, start developing those. And one of the qualities that I would say is indispensable for all is abhayam. Abhayam means fearlessness. So, once you develop that one quality, all other qualities, it's easy to develop. As long as you don't develop that abhayam, which is fearlessness, if you still have fear in the heart, every other quality will fly out to the moment something happens, right? So dhairya lakshmi, as long as that's why they say dhairya sahasi lakshmi, meaning as long as you have dhairya, which is your courage, all other things will come back to you. Even if the world is destroyed, so when I say world, all your everything is destroyed, as long as you have courage, you can rebuild it back, right? So with that, I will kind of sum it up, and then we'll open it up for uh, the discussion. So we have about 15 minutes for that. We'll stop with Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Yeah, there we are.
Wonderful.
So,
So if anyone has any questions, so they can unmute themselves and please come forward and ask your question.
or any comments are also welcome.
Yes.
Hi, sir. My name is Hari. I have a question. Sir, what is the difference between or how close is Shastra to commandment? Commandment means it is mandatory that we need to follow that. Is Shastra very close to that, or is it very it is not mandatory to follow everything, right? Yeah, please explain if
Okay,
you can.
so Shastram. Okay, there are multiple. Good question. First off, I'm glad you are asking it to clarify. Commandment. Whenever, as a child, when I heard commandment, I was always thinking about the Christian commandments. But the word commandment here is basically not a religious one. Commandment means things you have to do, right? So Shastras have multiple steps. One is called Nitya Karma. Nitya Karma are things you have to do, right? So one of them being Sandhya Vandan, right? Now, Sandhya Vandana is basically morning and evening prayers at the twilight, dusk and dawn, right? For example, people ask you, and this has been discussed also, like what is the benefit of doing Sandhya Vandana? The answer is there's no benefit of doing Sandhya Vandana, but there is loss of not doing it. It is like taking a bath, right? There's no benefit that you get from taking a bath, but there is loss, or or brushing your teeth easier, right? I don't become rich by brushing my teeth, or I don't get stronger or taller by brushing my teeth, but bad things happen if I don't, tooth decay and those kind of things. So Sandhya Vandana, for example, this karma, Nitya Karma, is for you to keep your mind and your spirit fresh. So your karmic debt comes down. And there is other things called niyata karma, things that you can take up. So some are optional, and Shastras themselves say these are prescribed for you. Some are optional for you because it doesn't apply throughout your life. For example, for a householder, there are some karmas that they have to do: dana and dharma, supporting, bhiksha, and all those things. We used to live in a society, the dharmic society, where students did not have to give, take up student loans. There were no old age homes, so to speak, because all that were supported by the grihasthas, right? It was a well formed society. Now we are talking about socialism and capitalism and all those things, right? So dharmic society was so integrated that it is internally supporting. All these karmas were not only for your personal, upliftment, the not the nitya karma. I'm talking about like the society karmas, right? So things you have to do to the society, the panchabhuta, mahayagnas, all those things. So there are some karmas that you have to do no matter what. There are some karmas, like you said, the commandments that are optional for you, right? And the Shastras themselves say which is what. For Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, fighting was his dharma. He doesn't have to fight with everybody every time. But in a runner, in a battlefield, he cannot run away. So
Right.
that is his commandment to fight. Yeah, I hope you get the difference.
Yes, yes.
So
Yeah,
I'll
I
give
got
you a
it.
couple of ones that are indispensable. Satyam vada, dharmam chara.
Yeah, yeah.
That you can that is your commandment, right? So like that you have lots of commandments that you cannot dispense away with.
Yeah. My question actually stemmed from more from this angle. For example, going to a temple and what all there are certain rituals that are done differently in different parts of different types of temples, right? So such things, and some people say that, oh, it is not necessary to do things in certain way. You don't have to do adhere to so many you don't have to be so ritualistic in some things. Some people casually say that. So that's what I was trying to ask
Hmm.
from that angle, actually.
Okay, so the ritual part, I don't know if I've already told you. I've told so many people, so I forget if I've told you this goat story,
Uh,
finding the goat.
Sorry,
Has
I
anybody here heard about it?
not attended every session. Sorry.
No, but I'm talking about the other regulars. Have I ever talked about the goat being tied outside and doing the puja? Yeah, I have. Okay. So I'll make it quick. Look, the ritual is basically something that we follow because our ancestors, our parents, or their parents have done it, right? But we often forget the why. So in your case, when you talk about temple rituals, I'm probably thinking something like Navagraha Shanti or something of that sort, where some things are optional, right? So those are completely optional for a person, and that is taken up basically on a wish. So they want to get rid of their upadi, and they want to do a Navagraha Homa or a Ganapati Homa and those kind of things. So that's an optional. It's not a Nitya Karma or it's not a mandatory one. So there you can, you can say I may or may not do it. All the rituals that you do, you'll always have to do a deep dive. Okay. So let me actually tell you the goat story, and then sorry for everybody else who has heard it. So I'll just repeat myself one more time. There was a guru who had does a puja every day, and he has a goat that comes and eats the prasad. So he ties the goat outside and does the puja. Simple. And this happens every time he does the puja, he ties the goat outside. And the Sishyas used to tie it, And after the guru passed away, this tradition continued. First tie the goat outside and then do the puja. So that became a ritual. So one of the Sishyas went to some, Canada or US. And now there were no goats to tie outside to do the puja. So he calls his parents. I don't have a goat. What do I do? They said, don't worry. Hang a goat photo outside and then do the puja. You understand? So the
Yes.
importance of tying the goat outside was there. The ritual part stood, but the why part was forgot. Same thing with the Navagraha Shanti or other Shantis or Ganapati Shanti. The main thing is to bring down the karmic debt. So that is the main thing. You can do, or you can, okay, there are two ways. You can either do the debt, the parihara, or you can do the tapas. In any case, what it is said is Atma Vidya, knowledge of the Atman, will eradicate all the, uh, or will cleanse everything else. Right? All your sanchita karma and everything goes away. Prarabdha remains. So, in case of Shastra, if you want to follow it, there are some Shastras, that is the whole point of this chapter, you cannot dispense with. That is called your Nitya Karma.
Okay.
Nitya Karma Anushtana, right? And there
Okay.
are some things that you can say, I don't want it at this point because it's not in your stage of life.
Okay.
And there are some called ishtis, which you don't even have to do in your lifetime, which is Satra Yajna or Putrakamishti Yajna or Ashwamedha Yajna. You don't have to do it. But people do it because they feel like doing it. That's optional, completely optional.
Sure. Thank you.
Sundarji, this is Arun here. First of all, thank you again for a very insightful presentation. What I wanted to share with you and others is that I took time to go on your recorded messages, which are available now, and they
Thank you.
are a gold mine. I think we should really promote this further, because then you could rewind it, write it, and then follow it. It's all there. So thank you very much for putting those. I wondered if is there any possibility of having a conversation where we could bring our questions from our reading and then kind of learn further? Will there be some time for that? Is that what you're thinking in workshop? Because I found those recorded messages. I think they're just wonderful, and I think obviously everything leads to more questions. So you need a little bit more conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you say recording, sorry, when you say questions from the readings, did you mean the questions from the previous sessions?
Yeah, previous
Okay.
session.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what we can have is this is what I'm planning on doing, right? Like I want to do a mirror boarding with a workshop based on, like we'll do the entire Bhagavad Gita as a collaborative effort to understand the Bhagavad Gita's, it won't be a 1 hour session, but we'll break it down and we'll go bit by bit, and we'll start bringing in questions. Definitely, we can start bringing in questions, which are very important because the whole process of Sanatana Dharma works by questioning only. The entire Bhagavad Gita is a series of question answers, and Arjuna did not understand it the very first time. Questions he had in the third chapter pretty much repeats itself in the ninth or tenth. So not ninth, but later chapters. Right? He always says, "Hey Krishna, what you're saying is confusing me. Please tell me or clarify." So reclarification is always required. But like you said, we can absolutely uh, bring in those questions into the conversations. I would be happy to do
Thank you.
So there is one question from Madhuji.
that.
She's asking about, you were talking about fearlessness. What should one do to develop this
Fearless.
quality?
Okay. So fearlessness is it's an interesting one, right? Now fear always comes when there is attachment, right? You have either the fear of losing what you have or the fear of letting go what you have, right? So you don't want to let go. It's called not letting go. It's called abhinivesha or abhiman. Sorry, abhinivesha is correct. And when there is attachment, you have fear. One of the things I always do personally is I ask, what is the worst thing that can happen in this situation, right? So if I'm afraid of something, I face my fear rather than run away from it. And this particularly is based on one of the experiences I had when I was probably 7 years old. I used to be terrified of dogs, right? And basically, I was in India, and the dogs there, right? They chase you and they bark, and street dogs. And one night, I had a dream of a dog chasing me, and I was running as fast as I could. And this dream dog caught up and it bit me, like it bit me on my hand. But the thing is, as soon as it bit, because it's a dream, you don't feel pain. I was actually watching it bite, and it bit, and then it walked away. What else, right? But the thing is, that experience, that kind of led me to the realization that, okay, dog bites, nothing happens, it walks away. So why fear? The moment I stopped fearing, when I started walking confidently, dogs didn't chase. I don't know why, but I think they can sense your fear, right? So thing is, I've used this over and over many times. When there's a situation where I'm afraid, or I used to be afraid, I face it. I see what will happen. Okay, when I want to tell the truth to somebody, what will happen? Maximum what is going to happen, right? So be prepared for the consequence, right? And then you'll discover either way, was it worth being afraid or was it worth not being afraid? But you will finally know you won't be living in fear. It'll be out in the open. And second is, it's a quality that you develop over and over. It's not an overnight quality. This fearlessness, it comes in tiny amounts, and you have to get to your comfort level, right? You need a supportive group or a fallback group in case something goes wrong, especially if you're having bigger fears. The bigger the fears get, for example, and third is, it's if there is something you're venturing into. For example, I'm talking about like people who are venturing into stock market, the risk takers, right? They're afraid, then don't go into things you don't know, the terrains that you don't know. Don't venture into it. But of the ones, the fear that you have currently, you can talk it out to somebody who's a confidante, and you can go from there. But at some point you'll have to face that fear. There's no way you can run away from it and conquer it. So that's my suggestion. And again, Ramnam is always there. The more you put your trust in something higher than yourself, you automatically have that confidence to walk through. But I was actually planning on doing this as a workshop, so we'll bring the
This kind of topics.
this one into the workshop.
Okay. Wonderful. So I believe we are already heading to our time. So if anyone has any question, or
Take one more and then we'll
Yeah.
close. If there is any here.
Yeah.
Okay, any comments on how we can improve? Because this is the end of 16, chapter 16. Then we'll go into the Gunas from the next time.
Yes.
Okay. If there's no other questions, then
Okay.
thank you.
Then I believe, we should. So once again, namaskar and thank you everyone. As we concluded, Sundarji concluded today, to pick the word today, word of the day is the desire. So let's watch our desire, where it's taking us, and what the kind of action we are doing towards to fulfilling it. Thank you so much, Sundarji, and thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you,
and
everyone.
Hoping to see you again next week, 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
all.
Shubhratri.
Pranam.
Thank you. Thank you.